This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. Get a whole month free at mubi.com/Karsten. Hey everyone, sorry about that, allergies. Welcome to another episode of What I Watched This Month, May edition. I started the month with The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Maybe I'm just being a sourpuss, but I really didn't like this movie. Not even in a so bad it's good kind of way, it was just ridiculously boring and unfunny to me. And that's coming from someone who likes Nick Cage and likes dumb movies, but this was dumb in a way that felt like it was just getting the job done. The whole spies in a different country plot is so played out and boring at this point. Can comedy action films be nothing else anymore? Which is especially disappointing because the concept itself, a movie about Nick Cage starring Nick Cage, is actually pretty good. But it feels like they just plug it into a movie that felt like it was already shelved. Like, they did not use the Nick Cage thing in any remotely interesting or unique ways. A bunch of references, him screaming, is that it? Is that all this movie thinks Nick Cage is? It was just a disappointing movie that I've already forgotten about. And I rewatched The Witch. I thought this was so much better on a rewatch. Probably just because I'm more familiar with what Robert Eggers is trying to do these days, but I thought as a horror film on its own, this was ridiculously unique and very horrifying. I love how much it does in such a small space. It is definitely interesting seeing something like this from 2015 and knowing just how influential it was to the horror genre in the last few years. It's just a great movie. I'm glad I can finally call myself a fan. Then I watched Zahori. I don't entirely know what this movie was about. If you like Chloe Zhao, you might like this. I don't know. Didn't do enough to keep me engaged, and I was pretty sleepy that day, so yeah. Then I watched Doctor Strange. I'll give this movie credit where it's due. The visuals and aesthetic required to make a Doctor Strange movie are well done and look kinda cool every now and then. Like the scene in the end, the scene where he's flying all over the place, the city collapsing in on itself. I can't imagine how much work that took, and it looks undeniably cool as shit. The rest of the movie, quite literally every other part of this movie, is dog shit. Doctor Strange is just a boring Tony Stark to me. The first 30 minutes of setup and establishing could not be blander. The story is told in the most uninteresting way possible. And more than anything, this gray, abysmal style of most Marvel movies of this time has never been stronger than it is here. They got better, I'll give them that, but this movie is of the time where it feels like besides those clippable scenes, they just didn't even care about looking nice. Then again, it's just not my kind of movie. You win some, you lose some, let's just move on. Then I watched Oslo August 31st. As a fan of Trier's Worst Person in the World, this was unsurprisingly also really great. Worst Person in the World was very sad, but this is another level entirely, as it tells the story of an addict dealing with suicide, spending a day away from the treatment center talking to close people in his life. It's one of those movies that's just hard to talk about without getting too personal, because much of what I love about this is just so real. Joachim Trier clearly understands how people process and cope, and he knows how to show that on film, and thanks to a phenomenal performance by Anders Danielsen Lee, this is one of the best examples of that I've ever seen. Then I watched Ghost Dog: The Way of the Samurai. I'm surprised it's taken me this long to get around to this Jim Jarmusch movie. I feel like I would describe each of his films as a genre of music, and this is clearly hip-hop, and it is just one of the coolest movies I've ever seen. Like all of his work, it's hard to even describe what's great about this from the outside, because it isn't until you're like 30 minutes deep that you find yourself just completely engulfed in each and every detail thrown at you. It isn't a slow movie, it's just a gentle collage. It lets you enjoy the frame and the role each character has in the other's life, all while being a really great samurai crime movie. This was barely a review, but can you tell I really liked this? Then I watched In the Mood for Love. This is maybe my third time, and this movie gets better with every viewing. Something I forget each time I watch is not only how short it is, but how fast it goes by. Like, if I had one complaint, it'd be that this movie is so damn crammed, like it does take multiple viewings to pick up on all the little details. I think I prefer flashier Wong Kar-wai at the end of the day, but I do really love this movie. It is probably one of the best romance films ever made, and it's been said before, but the use of red has really never been done before like it is here. Just such great costume and production design. Then I watched Charade. On paper, this movie seems very up my alley because of the oddball humor, Audrey Hepburn delivering the silliest performance I've ever seen, hilarious twists and turns the whole way through, the Hitchcockian style, and don't get me wrong, it is extremely up my alley. It should honestly be my favorite movie, but unfortunately it doesn't really stick the landing because the twists and turns do kind of get tiring after a while, and like I said, the ending, it could be better. But regardless, this is a very fun movie with an amazing poster that I am probably going to watch over and over again until I eventually give it 5 stars. Then I watched Great Freedom. This blew me away. The film tells the story of a man sent to prison under paragraph 175, a law that criminalizes homosexuality in post-war Germany, and the film is told in a kind of jumbled timeline of when he was first sent to prison, the second time he was sent back, and the third time, in a way that routinely recontextualizes how he functions under this system. And as a result, the film manages to tell an incredibly nuanced story of this man finding freedom in a place designed to take it away from him. The determination of his character is so strong and so felt. Franz Rogowski is one of the best actors working today, period. And on top of all that, it is beautifully shot. The film looks stunning. If I'm being honest, it's one of my favorite movies of the year so far. I truly cannot recommend this enough. And I watched Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, as some of you know, I like the new Spider-Man movies. I think Tom Holland is very charming. Homecoming was cute and fun. Far From Home was messy but watchable. And this one is barely a movie. I won't lie. After all that shit I talked in that one video, I did end up falling for the Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire thing more than I expected to. I think those two actors do just happen to have a lot of chemistry, and I thought they were pretty entertaining. But other than that, this movie is so boring. I guess it might be because I didn't grow up on the other Spider-Man movies. I'm sort of in the minority and don't really care all that much, but I also think a better movie would have gotten me to care a little bit. And I also think if I did grow up on them, I still would have been a little bored, because the movie is relying entirely on you being like, oh, it's the guy. Any scene that is a conversation, which is too many to be honest in a film like this, is shot in the most boring way imaginable. It is like they just told actors to stand in front of boring backdrop and talk, and they never switch the shot. You are the biggest production company in the world making films for children. Let's take some risks here. I was just severely underwhelmed by most of the movie, even if the ending was sort of cute and sweet. Then I watched Top Gun. Listen, it was fun. Tom Cruise is one of the great actors of all time, and I am reminded that every time I watch any Tom Cruise movie. But as far as super cheesy and masculine movies from the late 80s and early 90s with really gay undertones go, Point Break will forever be my boy. This is a good movie, don't get me wrong. I do like a Tony Scott movie every now and then, but at the end of the day, it's just not my kind of movie, at least compared to that one. Then I watched Shrek, sort of. I saw this at a packed midnight screening with the crowd screaming the entire time at the movie, booing at Farquaad, cheering for Donkey. It was one of the best experiences of my goddamn life. If you ever get the chance to see Shrek in a theater, specifically at midnight, you absolutely should. Because not only is it a great movie as is, but seeing it with a bunch of grown-ass people going crazy for every single scene is one of the best things a person can go through. Oh my god, I think it's maybe my favorite theater experience ever. Then I watched Men, and listen, I like Alex Garland and his movies. Despite the mixed reviews, I went into this with a pretty open mind. But man, do my eyes roll harder the more and more I sit with this. If it was a comedy, it'd be genius. I think the last 20 minutes of this movie are a blast. I think most of it is kind of silly, actually, but the fact that the film is trying to say men bad without actually saying anything at all, and trying to use Christian symbolism to try and add depth to a movie devoid of quite literally anything else, makes this unbelievably lame. The main character, the woman in Men, could not be more underwritten. The film makes the case that it's on your side, ladies, without actually giving a shit about the main woman in the story. It just felt very tone deaf, and even as a horror movie on its own, while sure it's undeniably well shot, none of the scares besides that final scene felt original enough to make any sort of lasting impression on me. Both in its themes and in its aesthetic, it is completely surface level no matter how you look at it. At least Mother was actually disturbing. Then I watched Pleasure. Unlike Men, this is one that only gets better the more I think about it. Pleasure is a movie about the porn industry, not the bad side of the porn industry, but about the porn industry. Whenever people ask me what the hardest movie I've had to sit through was, I always say Irreversible. That title has officially been dethroned because I was sick to my stomach by Pleasure from the first 10 minutes all the way to the end. This is a very uncomfortable movie that really does not hold back with how violent both physically and psychologically this business is. It had a large task to handle, trying to get us to empathize and understand a character as closed off as Bella Cherry, but it delivers one of the most nuanced character films I think I've ever seen. It's just a very, very, very well-made film that I will continue to think about for a while. It is insane to me that it has taken this long for a film about porn like this to exist. And I watched The Godfather Part 2. Fresh off of viewing, I would say I enjoy the first one a little bit more, but that this one is a lot more mature and sure as a hell a lot more dense. I would be a lying little shit if I said I understood everything that happened in this movie. Listen, I liked it a lot. It's an amazing movie, but it is definitely difficult to follow all these characters and all their motivations and all the connections all of the time. It's just one of those movies that's a lot to take in for me, which is why I think it's a little on me that I didn't think it was the best thing in the world. I just need some more time with this one that's all. Al Pacino, Rob De Niro, and Diane Keaton are just simply the best. And I finished the month with David Cronenberg's Videodrome. Knowing I'm a big fan of Julia Ducournau, it comes as no surprise that I'm also a big fan of Cronenberg so far. Fresh off watching this for the first time, I can't say I know exactly what this is saying. It seems like it's saying a lot of different things at once that could be interpreted in a lot of different ways. But I love how spiritually it is able to treat technology and the way it's also able to create such a compelling horror movie out of it. The body horror and gore is done so masterfully, it never feels cheap. If I'm being honest, I think it's flawless and probably the best introduction I could have had to his work. I've also been watching the new season of Barry, and wow, I can't believe this show ever used to be a comedy. And hey, that's what I watched this month. Thanks for watching. Check out all these films and form your own opinion. In fact, you can check out Oslo August 31st, Great Freedom, and Charade all on this week's sponsor, Mubi. Mubi is a curated streaming service, a place to watch beautiful, interesting, and incredible cinema. From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there is always something new to discover. With Mubi, each and every film is hand-selected. It's like your own personal film festival, streaming anytime, anywhere. That's right, if you didn't get to go to Cannes, like me, you can still have a good time at home. And I sure did this month. If you didn't keep track, I watched 3 movies on Mubi this month, all 3 of which were fantastic. I mean, Great Freedom, which is a Mubi release, I'm pretty sure, it was just phenomenal. It's not a movie I would have ever heard of if I didn't have Mubi. You can try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/Karsten. That's mubi.com/Karsten for a whole month of amazing cinema for free.